Hare Krishna. Our today's speaker, His Grace Amarendra Prabhuji, is a disciple of His Holiness Radha Govind Goswami Maharaj, who is a senior disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Academically, Amarendra Prabhu is a Master's in Electrical Engineering from the University of Massachusetts. And spiritually, he holds a Bhakti Shastri degree from Mayapur Institute of Higher Education, India. Amarendra Prabhu travels to many cities around the world spreading Krishna consciousness in universities, temples, congregations and social platforms such as YouTube, WhatsApp and Facebook. So let's hear nectarian words from His Grace Amarendra Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Is the voice audible for those sitting behind? Quick sound check. For those sitting to the side? Behind? Yes, Prabhu? Is it clear? Okay, nice. How about for those who are sitting ahead? So I'm very grateful to be back here at this very beautiful, wonderful temple of Sri Sri Radha Giridhari. I remember last time when we came here, we had the good fortune of sharing some verses from the Bhagavad Gita. The place remains the same. The devotees remain the same. The topic changes a bit and the enthusiasm also changes. Very grateful to the management of the temple for kindly having me here. Thank you, Mataji, for very lovingly, very kindly coordinating this whole thing. Mataji was very kind enough to discuss the topics and have the whole program chalked out. Very grateful. If not for the proper announcements, if not for the proper planning, I wouldn't be sitting here utilizing my time. Probably you will be sitting here hearing a better class, but I wouldn't be sitting here serving all of you. So very grateful that each one of you decided to come here. We have some illustrious guests joining us. My father, who has been such a role model for me, his role model and mentor, Dr. Rama, is here. So we would like to welcome Dr. Rama. He's such a charismatic, multifaceted, multi-talented personality, materially, spiritually, musically, and in all ways possible, very dynamic. Such a mentor, materially and spiritually. Thank you, sir, for taking your time out and coming to bless us this morning. Sir is so busy with so many commitments. He's In fact, the whole class can be on the influence that Sir has been having on my father and eventually on our family. Day before yesterday, I think, not day before yesterday, a week ago, we were hearing your classical CD and we were very nourished. Such a wonderful, accomplished singer as well, musician as well. So we're all very blessed. There are many more jewels sitting in the assembly, but in the interest of time, I will offer public obeisances to everyone. If I individually start bowing down, we would spend the whole day doing that. So to keep time in check and at the same time to do justice to the topic that we have been assigned, I would bow down to each one of you for kindly participating in assembling here. Please kindly offer your best wishes. May the right words come at the right time, in the right spirit, to serve all of you this morning. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Oftentimes, when we assemble together, the topics of discussion are primarily from the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam or the Ramayana or the Mahabharata and different streams of Vedic knowledge. We have detailed discussions generally when we meet, but today's topic is a little different. The discussion for this session is on the topic of the science and spirituality behind the no onion, no garlic principle of ISKCON. Oftentimes as devotees, we are okay with everything. We can speak about Krishna being God. We can speak about why Mother Sita was kidnapped by Ravana. We can speak about why did the battle of Kurukshetra get assigned by Krishna. But we get stumped very brutally when this question is asked as to why we are not supposed to have onion and garlic. So today's discussion is aimed towards answering that question. It's a very broad discussion. It can span about 2 to 3 sessions of 1 hour each. But we will just cut to the chase. We will just present the crux of the matter. Oftentimes, when this topic is posed, one arrow that has been shot in this regard is that what is wrong with onion and garlic? We are not harming anybody. It's not like meat. We understand the principle of meat. Ahimsa paramo dharmaha. We shouldn't kill anyone. We shouldn't cause any physical, mental, emotional turmoil to anyone's life. But what's wrong with what I eat? Onion and garlic, nothing wrong. Not just ISKCON. We see even in many other traditions who are following a spiritual path, they adhere to this principle. And oftentimes when people pose the question, they ask this point. It has so many medicinal and medical uses and applications. Like for example, onion and garlic are primarily used as natural blood thinners. They are used as antioxidants. They are used as antibiotics. They are used in antifungal properties. They are in fact even used in medicines for treating diabetes, cholesterol, and high blood pressure. So this is such a wonderful gift to mankind. And you spiritualists, you're not taking use of it. You're not taking advantage of this vegetable. So well, this is all correct. Just like we see in life, everything has pros and cons. Life is a coin with 2 sides. There's advantages and disadvantages. Boon and bane on both sides of the coin for everything in life. And onion and garlic surely have a lot of advantages for the health. However, there are other side effects that we will talk about. Let's start our discussion with culture. Not just Indian culture. Let's talk about culture. Universally, ubiquitous culture. In all the different countries, whether it's Greece, whether you go to Turkey, whether you go to Egypt, whether you go to the Roman culture, whether you talk about the Arabs, whether you talk about the British, whether you talk about the Buddhists, let's survey around to see what the other cultures speak about as far as onion garlic is concerned. Is everyone ready? Yes. Everyone interested? Yes. Do you think we should discuss this? Yes. Okay, very nice. It's interesting to serve a chapati when there is hunger on the other side. In the Greek culture, traditionally, as we know, culture has different aspects as far as drama, dance, poetry, literature. So in the famous plays of Greece, there's one very famous play. And the name of the play is Wives at the Feast of Thesmophores. This is the name of the play in the Greek culture. And the story goes like this, that at a certain event, many women turn illicit. They start cheating on their husbands. They have a paramour. And there are descriptions of extramarital lovemaking in that play. Now those wives, to hide their sin, they eat onion and garlic in that play. Why? Because they say to each other that if you have onion and garlic, your mouth is going to stink so much that the husband will not come close to you, so you don't have to answer him where you were for so long. You can use the foul smell of onion and garlic to keep your husband away, and by the time the foul smell leaves, you would have thought of different arguments, and when the husband comes together, you can get rid of the situation. This is what is found in the Greek culture in that play. Now, in the Greek culture, there was also a very famous physicist. Just like we've all heard of Socrates, there was a physicist by the name, there's a physician by the name Hippocrates. Please kindly settle down with ease so that it's not a disturbance for the others. There was a physician by the name Hippocrates. And Hippocrates in the Greek culture sets down rules and regulations for healthy living. And in one of the rules or the tenets that he sets in, he mentions if you have onion and garlic, it brings in a warm sensation of the heart and increases anxiety, agitation, aggressive mentality, irritations, and provocability in the head. These are his words. He also mentions if there are pains in the body, they will get accelerated. You'll feel more aggrieved than before. These are his words. Hippocrates, the famous physician in the Greek culture, mentions this about onion and garlic. Now, keeping the Greeks aside, let's enter the Roman culture. Now, in the Roman culture, there is a very famous city by the name Pompeii. Now, in Pompeii, it's described that when the vegetable vendors and sellers would come together, those selling onion and garlic were always considered to be an outcast. In the Roman culture, all the chairmen, please kindly sit properly on your chair and don't play around. Kids can also kindly settle down. So in the Roman culture, in the city called Pompeii, different vegetable vendors and sellers come together and they have very hearty discussions. But for those selling onion and garlic, they're considered to be an outcast and they have to form a group, a guild of their own, just because they're selling onion and garlic. This is the Roman culture. Also in the Roman culture, there used to be a very famous way of living for creating equality in society. And what was it? Whatever food was left over by the aristocratic rich men, you take it and distribute it among those who are poor. Interestingly, what was distributed among the poor was onion and garlic and mushroom, because that is what was left behind by the aristocratic. The rich aristocratic affluent class would leave behind onion, garlic and mushroom, and that is what used to be distributed among the below poverty line class in Rome, in the Roman Empire. Keeping the Greeks aside, keeping the Roman Empire aside, now let's move to the British who ruled us. The famous Shakespeare writes in a very wonderful play, The name of the play is Midsummer's Night's Sleep. This is the name of the play. Now in this play, there's a character called as Bottom. And Shakespeare writes as a dialogue for Bottom. Bottom is speaking this dialogue and he says, please never consume onion and garlic. Why? Because we are supposed to speak sweet words with sweet breath. Shakespeare writes this. You're supposed to speak sweet words with sweet breath. You can speak sweet words, but with a foul breath in case of the consumption of onion and garlic. So Shakespeare writes this in the Midsummer's Night's Sleep or Night's Dream, as the play is called. So onion and garlic brings in that flavor even in the play. Shakespeare. Now in the British tradition or culture, there was another great poet by the name Percy Shelley. And when he was befriending Lord Byron and went to meet Lord Byron in Italy, he broke his friendship. Why? Because he saw Lord Byron consuming onion and garlic in a social gathering. And it's described, Percy Shelley said, I am not going to befriend you because in a social gathering you consuming onion and garlic, and this is abominable. I can't accept this. Khatam hamari dosti. What to speak of that far? Even when the British came to India, let's talk about when the British entered India. Leprosy was still prevalent, and the British did see lepers on the street of India. And as we see, everything melts off and peels off in leprosy. So the British did observe that the lepers on the streets of India, whose skin and flesh and bones were melting and peeling off, they were consuming garlic. And the British called leprosy as the peel garlic disease. Peel garlic disease. You can Google every single iota of information that I'm presenting here. Because our job is not to present something new, but simply like a researcher get things together at your service. I'm like a waiter. The cooking is already done. I'm simply bringing in the plate. So the British called leprosy as the peel garlic syndrome or the peel garlic disease, illness, because those whose body was peeling off were consuming garlic. This is as far as the British is concerned. We spoke about the Greek, we spoke about the Romans, we spoke about the British. Now please come to Egypt. It's good to know from all cultures so that we are not sectarian in any way. In the Egyptian culture, it was described that those who are poor must accept bread, beer, and onion. Egyptian culture. Priests in the temple were not allowed to consume any of these three. You can consume beer, you can consume onion, garlic, you can consume bread. Nowadays, bread has become like the life of our lives. But in the Egyptian culture, they were very strict. If somebody had to be a priest, a pujari, so to speak, in a temple, in a place of worship, you can't consume any of these three. And those who are poor, they would consume. In fact, in the Egyptian understanding, if someone consumed it, they would say, I think he's very poor. That's all that he has to eat. He doesn't have proper fruits and vegetables. Therefore, he's succumbing to the consumption of onion and garlic and bread and beer. We spoke about the Egyptian culture. Please come to Turkey. In Turkey, there's a very long-standing mythological legend. And they say that in heaven, Satan, someone whom we call as Asura or Rakshasa in Sanskrit, Satan was ousted out from heaven. And when Satan was pushed out of heaven, he stepped out. And when he stepped his left foot, from there was the birth of garlic. And when he stepped the right foot, that was the birth of onion, according to the Turkish legend. We are not talking about the Vedas, we are talking about Turkey. They believe when Satan was sent out of heaven, when he pressed his left foot, garlic, and then onion with the right. So onion and garlic, they believe, came from the feet of Satan when he was pushed out of heaven. So therefore one mustn't consume. That is the Turkish belief. So we spoke about the Greek, we spoke about the Roman, we spoke about British, we spoke about Egypt, we spoke about Turkey. Now please come to the Buddhists. the Tao writings. In the Buddhist understanding, in the Tao writings, there's a very great, famous Buddhist teacher by the name Sangze. And he writes in his writing that those who want to be celibate all their life must never consume onion and garlic. Why? Because they push in the aggression of lust in the heart. He says, yes, they have a lot of powerful, scientific, medical uses. But if you want to maintain celibacy, if you want to go on the path of Buddhism with perseverance, without distraction, then you must not consume, because that will agitate, that will increase the lust and anger in the heart, which is not very good for a Buddhist practitioner. So therefore, those Buddhist monasteries which are age-old, very old, and which follow the tradition as intact as possible, they even till this very day, they don't consume onion and garlic. Their fundamental teachings may be different from ours, and we respect the difference. We embrace the similarity and we accept the difference. But however, they don't consume onion and garlic. Even now, traditional Buddhist restaurants, let's talk about traditional, very traditional culture, Thai, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese restaurants. We're not talking about all the meat and the seafood that's available. We're talking about the really classic, traditional, cultured Buddhist restaurants. Even till this very day, they don't offer onion and garlic to the customers. They don't consume themselves, and you don't get it there. You can't buy it there. So this is as far as culture is concerned. And of course in India, you will see traditionally in any Brahminical setup, whether they are Gujarati Brahmanas or South Indian Brahmanas, onion and garlic has never been part of their culture. It has all been introduced with time. It was never traditionally there in our culture. Never. Brahminical Indian Vedic culture, it wasn't there. So it's not just something that we propose here in ISKCON. It is something that universally has been seen. This is as far as culture is concerned. Now let's switch gears and come to the Department of Science. Culture says this, but what do the scientists say? What does science speak about as far as onion and garlic is concerned? What are the ill effects, so to speak, if that is what our calling is at the moment? So as far as scientific presentations are concerned, there's a very famous, sexologist in America by the name Dr. Robert Robinson. He presented a paper on the effect of onion and garlic in inducing, in provoking lusty sexual indulgence, proclivity in the person who's consuming. Because he's a sexologist, so he discusses this subject matter from different angles of vision. And he called onion and garlic as libido enhancers, which means those who enhance the sexual desire. So if someone, it's described, has impotency sexually, or gets fatigued, exhausted really quick, they are given onion and garlic to increase their sexual appetite. This is as far as the sexologists are concerned. Therefore, in the Arab culture, every recipe has onion and garlic. Because their understanding is, for a family to be together, they must have a lot of children. The husband and wife may find a million reasons to fight and part, but if you have kids, you're stuck. Those who laugh get the joke. So you're there. You can go ahead, you can go behind, you just go together, do whatever, just go with the flow, so to speak. So in the Arab culture, they believe it's all a gift of God to have many children. And to have many children, to keep the loyalty to your wife, they have onion and garlic so that the sexual appetite is high, according to this sexologist. In March of 1996, in Seattle, Washington, United States of America, in an exhibition conference, there was a very great physicist by the name Bob Beck, Dr. Bob Beck. You can again Google, there's a detailed paper on Google. He speaks about, his whole paper was on effects of onion and garlic in the layer of human cognition, because he had done some interdisciplinary papers together. He had studied a bit of neuropsychotics also. So he described having onion and garlic brings in something called as neuropsychotic imbalance. Neuropsychotic imbalance. Now basically what neuropsychotic imbalance is, an imbalance between your left and right part of the brain. The cognition ability is dysfunctional. He mentions in that paper, Dr. Bob Beck mentions in that paper, every airline which has to take off successfully has something called as a pilot test. The pilot is tested before he takes on the aircraft. And 72 hours before they take off, he shouldn't have consumed onion and garlic. Why? Because if a pilot consumes onion and garlic up to 72 hours, that's about 3 days before takeoff, the reaction time that a pilot has slows down 3 times. So if he has to react in a second, he would react in 3 seconds. And that makes his job very risky because he is taking so many other lives in that aircraft. Neuropsychotic imbalance is caused. It breaks through, onion and garlic breaks through the blood-brain barrier. It's described, it does the same effect as DMSOs, dimethyl sulfoxides. They can poison the cells if you let them go. And the same effect is produced by onion and garlic according to the research. Well, the time in which it causes the effect would be different, but the effect, slowly but surely, is the same. Now, to put this hypothesis to practice and to make it a proof, Dr. Bob Beck actually did an experiment. Dr. Bob Beck actually had a specimen of 30 different candidates, and after lunch had them go through the EEG, which basically checks for the brain wave pattern as to how the brain waves are working. Now when he had them go through the EEG to see how's the brain wave pattern so that he can see on the screen, he saw some of them looked clinically dead according to the experiment. Why? He asked them, what did you eat for lunch? They said, I just went to an Italian restaurant. So what did you eat there? I just had salad. What else? Salad with a garlic dressing on the top. And he said as soon as he could hear that, the effect of garlic was seen immediately on the EEG pattern that he found. They had the same effect as those who were clinically dead. So it was breaking through the blood-brain barrier pattern. This is what is happening by onion and garlic. Then Bob Beck continued in his paper, and he mentioned those who are pregnant women, if they consume onion and garlic for a long time, children in the womb have a risk of even death, depending on how tender their bodies are. Because you see, onion and garlic can bring in a pungent odor, very, very hot in nature. And as you know, those which are astringent and pungent and bitter, they can have different effects than those which are sweet. So those who are pregnant women, he was suggesting till a certain month they should not have onion and garlic, just to safeguard the health of the child in the womb. Also, he continued and mentioned that if for those who are into gardening, organic gardening and taking care of your own garden, so to speak, the same effect that a DDT has on killing insects, that same effect onion and garlic can have on the body, he mentioned, Bob Beck mentions. So when I was reading through this article, I was thinking, my God, he seems to be like really well researched on this topic. He even went on to mention, for those who are suffering from attention deficiency disorder, ADD, if you just take onion and garlic out of their plate for 60 days, their attention span increases in whatever they do. So sometimes we see nowadays, especially kids have such less attention spans. Whatever you try to teach them or you try to explain to them, their mind's going all over the place. They don't understand anything. It's very tough, especially in the generation of the phone. You're looking at the phone, you're looking at the television, you're looking here, you're looking outside the window, you're not paying attention to anything. It's very difficult to focus, basically, in this present generation where everything is fast, but no one knows which direction we are going in. We are fast. We want to go from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4G, Hanji, Naji. And in the temple, Prabhuji, Mataji. We are going in some G, but we don't know what direction we are going in. Speed is not that important. Direction is important. So he mentioned in the paper, for those who are suffering from attention deficiency disorder, ADD, if you just take onion and garlic out of their plate, for 60 days, their attention span betters. Also, he mentioned, just keep a peeled onion on the table in a room. You keep the peeled onion on the table in the room. This peeled onion has the power to attract as many infectious microbes in the room as possible. Very powerful tool. It can attract as many infectious microbes in the room as possible. And that's what it does in the stomach. That's what it does in the body of those who consume. So therefore, yes, definitely, onion and garlic have so many medical use and advantages. But our point is, to put our baby to sleep, would it be intelligent for the mother to give the child morphine? The child will sleep, yes. But is that what you want to do? Is the question. Positive effects are there to everything. Nowadays, people have positive effects of being on the phone for more than 10 hours a day. Positive effects of, so much so that, please forgive me, people have written papers on positive effects of pornography. So in this generation, we are ready to look at positive effects to everything. So there are positive effects for everything, including onion and garlic. But the point is, for someone who wants to be spiritually nourished, someone who wants to be devoted, steadfast on the path to find happiness, most important is focus, most important is celibacy. Nowadays, in the present generation, please forgive me, I'm just speaking like an adult because it's just an adult assembly. So please forgive me if you're a little uncomfortable with it, but I'll just speak the truth as it is. In the present generation, the influence of internet pornography, the influence of masturbation, the influence of losing one's virginity so quickly in life is so rampant. You will see people, by the time they are 30, by the time they are 40, teeth falling off, hair going gray, knee pain, lower back pain, no energy, fatigue, increased lens or power for the eyes, lack of hunger, lack of sleep, no attention, depression, loneliness. All of this happens by overindulgence in sexual activity. It is not wrong, but everything has its time, place, and perspective. What we eat today takes 45 days to drop one drop of semen. 45 days. So for those who are of my age and lesser or little older, this is a very wonderful discussion. One drop of semen, 45 days of food. According to Ayurveda, 80 drops of blood is one drop of semen. That's how precious it is to the body. And nowadays, it's a trend. It's a trend to lose it. In fact, in America, they say, you lose it. You lose it if you don't use it. They talk about, you lose it if you don't use it. So they feel this is meant for enjoyment, but it is not so. This seminal, unwanted, unnecessary seminal discharge is bringing in havoc. The more there is indulgence in sexual activity, the more there is loss of seminal fluid. A person comes to the point of being addicted to the act. Impotency sets in. Semen becomes completely incapable of doing its duty. The person becomes depressed in life. But however, this same Urja Shakti, this Ojas Shakti, Virya Shakti, the same semen in the body, if it is not thrown down the drain unnecessarily in life, it goes up in the body. And when it starts nourishing the brain, when it starts nourishing the cognitive functionalities of the body, you see some of these spiritualists, they are so knowledgeable. They are so effulgent. As soon as they walk in an assembly, it's like the room is lit up. Where is that coming from? It is coming by just holding on to the semen in the body. Well, you'll say it's very difficult. Well, it is difficult. It's not easy. But when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Those who have early seminal discharge in life, very quickly they age. The skin starts getting sagging. There are wrinkles. Now then you have facelift and then you have wrinkle creams. You can cover up, but the reality doesn't change. The reality doesn't change. Deformities set in. And the person becomes like a vegetable as they age. And the more you indulge, the more the desire to indulge increases. And now when the senses are depleting in old age, the frustration is higher because the desire is high, but the ability to indulge is low. So therefore, in Vedic culture, we have to do the cost-benefit analysis, not on the basis of what is good for the medically, what is good, what is a natural blood thinner. Well, everything has its use, but we have to see from one pointed vision. For a spiritualist, if you want to go, you want to tread the path of focus, you want to tread the path of devotion, you want to tread the path of celibacy, accept things which we take on that path, which are favorable on that path, and reject things which are not favorable. Simple. Simple for the simple. If celibacy helps us go that distance, accept it. Now, when I talk about celibacy, we're not just talking about brahmacharis. We're talking about, in this age of what I'm talking about as far as celibacy is concerned, being loyal to one partner, that's one spouse. That's what we're talking about, underlining principle for now. But the disgusting factor is even before marriage, the tradition, the movies, the ads, just look around. Even to sell a talcum powder, you need a ill-clad woman. To sell a car, to sell tiles, well, the tiles in the bathroom have nothing to do with this lady. But if you sell the tiles without the lady, no one looks at the tiles. Then you have the perfumes. My goodness. The ads for the perfumes are like, you know, it doesn't even need explanation and elaboration. Everything, bulletin boards, flyers, posters, newspapers. Wow, look at the newspapers. You have everyone, even in their old age, flipping through the newspaper. They have no idea what the newspaper talks about. They can't even read the newspaper, but they want to see the newspaper. This is how it is. Krishna says in the Gita, lust, anger and greed are 3 doorways to hell. Anger breaks down all our austerity that we have collected in one agitation. Lust, such a lethal weapon. The more you indulge, it's an interesting trap. Interesting trap. Every time you indulge in it, you feel guilty about it after the act. And before the act, you feel, wow, that's the pleasure. You have slipped in that same pit so many times in the past, and you know it's a trap, but the mind tricks. This time you'll be happy. Yes or yes? This is lust. The rust of lust. And of those which agitate this lust, onion and garlic are considered to be top on the list. They're up on the list. So we will say, well, they have good advantages, but if you want to maintain celibacy, you have to reduce the agitation of lust. And this is something that will help. Having said that about science, now let's move to Ayurveda. What does Ayurveda talk about as far as onion and garlic is concerned? As we know, on the basis of the Bhagavad Gita, Ayurveda categorizes food as far as sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattvika, rajasika, tamasika. Krishna also mentions about this in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. What are the foodstuffs which come under the category of goodness or sattva gun? What are the foodstuffs that come under rajogun, rajasic pravritti? What comes under tamasic? Krishna also speaks about it. Even the Ayurveda principles speak about this. According to Ayurveda, sweets, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, freshly cooked hot preparations in the vegetarian diet, they are all sattvika. And sattvika, ahara shuddhi, sattva shuddhau, sattva shuddhis dhruva smritihi. This is an Ayurvedic principle. In Hindi, you call it colloquially as jaisa ann vaisa man, jaisi pani vaisi vani. Where does it come from? It comes from Ayurveda. You are what you eat. So if you eat things which are sweet, you eat things which are fresh, you eat things which are nourishing and organic, they nourish the intelligence. It makes us more devotional, more spiritually inclined. You want to fuel your car so that the car proceeds ahead. You don't want to throw junk into your car so that it gets clogged. Rajasic foodstuffs are those which are hot. Now when I talk about hot, it's not the temperature, but I'm talking about the spice. Things which are very agitating. And I know people who eat and they say, "Arey, bahut bland hai. Prabhu ji, thoda mirch le aana." And I have seen people chew more mirch than the food. It's just a pravritti that we have to overcome. It's very easy for someone eating spicy food to have spicy speech. What goes into the tongue is what comes out of the tongue. Please note the GIGO principle: garbage in, garbage out, good in, good out, GIGO. You throw in rajas, what comes out is not sattva, please. Please understand, what you throw in is what comes out. The input is rajasic. The output will be rajasic. The thought process will be rajasic. You see in tabla, you call it as dhrit lay, when the speed is taking off. Dhrita. So upadhrita, the consciousness starts becoming like a tabla. It's moving like a galloping horse, which means it's agitated. For every single thing we complain. Have you seen people like that? And then they give you reasons why they're saying what they're saying. If there is a wound here, and you put your finger here, does it hurt me? It does. But if I don't have a wound here, and even if you poke your finger in, does it hurt me? No. So if the finger is pushed in and it hurts me, it's not the problem of the finger, it's the problem of the wound. So which means situations outside are like fingers poking us. And if we get poked, it's not the finger, it's the wound inside. And the wound inside is rajasic pravritti. Now for those who are new to what is sattva, rajas and tamas, I'll give you a quick example. You go out in the woods, you see nice trees and birds around, chirping, tweet, 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 birds around, early in the morning. The sattvic pravritti are those who feel vrikshavalli amha soyari vanachare pakshihi susware. Aha, I should sit here, it's so beautiful. Scenic, the waterfalls, the mountains, the trees, the shade, the birds. Ah, I just want solace. This is sattvic. Rajasic will come there and say, very wonderful place. I was just thinking if we can cut down these trees and buy this land. Arey, yahan shopping mall ban sakta hai. I can make buildings here. I'll make crores and crores of rupees. Just cut down these trees. What are they doing? Give me this property. Rajas. What does tamas think? He opens the window. He sees, very good, all the best. Closes and goes to sleep. He is too lazy to act. So if you eat things which are sattvic, the thought process is sattvic. If you eat things which are rajasic, the thought process is rajasic. What are rajasic foodstuffs? Onion and garlic. What is tamasic foodstuff? old food, too salty food, stale food, bitter food, cold food. All of this is tamasic. What you eat is what you become. So Ayurveda says, no, food must be hot as far as temperature is concerned, not hot as far as spice is concerned. Srila Prabhupada also mentioned this point. On the name of prasadam, we should not have spicy food, because Krishna's tongue and Krishna's lips are vishuddha sattva. They are not rajasic like us. So we have to have very sweet, palatable foodstuffs which we can also accept. This is what Ayurveda mentions. Now finally, we spoke about culture, we spoke about science, we spoke about Ayurveda. Now please come to what our Shastras speak about. What spiritually, what do we in the Vedas see? Now in the Kamba Ramayana of South India, you see a very famous story, which is what we know as the Samudra Manthan Leela. Kambalwar talks about this. He mentions how Durvasa Muni was once walking and he saw Indra coming on his Airavat elephant. And Durvasa Muni offered his garland to Indra. Indra felt happy, accepted the garland, removed the garland, put it to Airavata. Airavata found that garland not matching with his skin color. Oh well, he's a flashy elephant, by the way. Airavata is something. He's an interesting personality. So he didn't like the garland. He tore the garland, threw it to the floor and stamped this garland, because he saw this garland was given by Indra. To chalega. Ghar ki murgi dal barabar. To hamare Indra hai, we have no problem. So he stamped and broke the garland. And Durvasa saw this. If you ever want to play with any sadhu in this world except Durvasa. Well, that's like the last thing you would want to do in this world. Kuch bacha nahi hai, sabka aparadh ho gaya. I have displeased everyone. I have committed every sin explained in the Manusmriti and Manu Samhita. I have robbed, I have kidnapped, I have set houses on fire. Still, you should not offend Durvasa. He is a league of his own. Asa means to accept. Durva means grass. Nowadays we have a very trendy thing. What are you having? I am having wheat grass juice. Well, that is Durva Asa. Durva is wheat grass and Asa means to accept. So when you say Durvasa, theek hai. But what are you having? Wheat grass juice. You're welcome to have a glass of wheat grass juice. Now it sounds upmarket. Well, in Sanskrit it's Durvasa. So that's all that he would have from morning to night, and he was so austere about it. So he said, well, elephant is a dull-headed animal, so he cannot get the curse, but the curse must go to the person who gave it to the elephant. Indra, you get the curse. Now you know the history of Indra. The Chamakam glorifies Indra. Pranaschama, Indraschame. Oh, whatever I give to Lord Shiva, I also give it to Indra. But Indra has been the epitome, the ultimate zenith, the ultimate example, the exemplification and personification of offense. So he accepted this. Okay, what do you want me to do? He said, no, you're going to, not just you, 330 million soldiers of yours in the form of the demigods, the Suraganas, they're all going to lose. So they had a battle with the Devata, the Asuras, and the Asuras won over the Devatas. And long story short, big long story explained in Kamba Ramayana, it comes down to the churning of the milk ocean. In the churning of the milk ocean, the Mandara Parvat is in the center. Vasuki snake is used as the rope. On one side are the Devatas, on the other side are the Asuras. Beneath, to maintain vertical stability, we have Kurmadev, and the churning is going on. From the churning comes poison, which Lord Shiva drinks, and so many other products come up. The moon comes up, Lakshmi Devi comes up, and Kamadhenu cow comes up. And finally, Dhanvantari brings up a pot of nectar in the form of herbs. So even now when you have polyclinics outside, it's called Dhanvantari Polyclinic. You see in so many places. Where does it come from? From the Samudra Manthan Leela. Nectar was got up. The demon stole it and took it to Patal. The demigods prayed. The Supreme Lord came as Mohini Murti. Why Mohini Murti? The demigods could stop all impulses except lust. This is the biggest trap in this world. Pumsa striya maithuni bhavameta tayo mitho hridaya granthi mahur atha griha kshetra sutta apta vittaihi janasya mohoyam aham mameti. Bhagavatam. Lust attracts and intertwines the heart in such a way that desire just goes on and on and on. And the dissatisfaction also goes on and on and on. So the demigods saw that only Vishnu can help. Vishnu came as Mohini Murti. Mohini Murti went down and got the pot of nectar successfully. And the demons are also walking behind Mohini. आप दाएं कहें तो हम दाएं, आप बाएं कहें तो हम बाएं, आगे आगे आप, पीछे पीछे हम. The Mohini Murti is walking and the demons are also walking. But interestingly, Mohini Murti, as she started distributing the nectar among the demigods, the Suraganas, one of the demon, he became a Brahmana and he stood among the Devatas so that he also gets. Mohini Murti innocently, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya cha, saw a Brahmana and gave nectar. The nectar went into the mouth, was almost going to go down the throat. Surya and Chandra went to Mohini Murti and said, actually there is some duplicity here. He's a demon dressed as a Brahmana. Mohini Murti invoked the Sudarshan Chakra, cut through the head of this demon. Now what happened? One became two. The head flew in one direction, the body fell in the other direction. For those who are into Jyotish Shastra, this is the origin of Rahu and Ketu. So for those who study Vedic astrology, you will always study that Rahu has a face without a body and Ketu has a body without a face. Where does that come from? They are actually parts of this person who's been slit through. So for example, if someone has Rahu in a certain house, they will have face but no body, in the sense they will be only interested in eating, but not interested in seeing where it's going to go. So the greed, the head represents the greed. So if someone has Rahu in the 7th house, for example, of marriage, then they will only see marriage as an exploiting opportunity. I'm going to take more, I'm going to take more, I'm going to take more, because that's what the face does. It keeps eating without thinking, because he doesn't have a body, he doesn't have a stomach, so he doesn't have to think of storing, just eat. And Ketu on the other hand is a headless body. He doesn't know kahan jaun. So if someone has Ketu in a certain house, they have a body but headless, which means their decisions will be erratic. So even for those who are atheistic astrologers, when they speak about Rahu and Ketu, they mention this story. Now, how does it tie down to what we are discussing? It is described in this story as the Sudarshan Chakra went and slit the one into two. The nectar was on the tongue and was going down the throat. By the mercy of Surya and Chandra, it was cut. So the nectar didn't go to the body. Rahu saw this as vengeance, that Surya and Chandra stopped me from becoming immortal. Therefore, Rahu chases the Surya, chases this Chandra as solar and lunar eclipse. Rahu chases. That is what Vedic astrology says. Now, because nectar is here, but at the same time, because of the cutting, blood also came out. So blood mixed with the nectar and fell off the mouth. Therefore, because blood and nectar are mixed together, the face and the body are split together. The face gave birth to onion and the body gave birth to garlic. And because it is blood, it is asuric. It is coming from the body of a demon. But because it is nectar, there will be a lot of medicinal properties in it. Now in the Shastra, there is another history about this. In Satya Yuga, there was a rishi who was performing a yajna. and he was performing something called as, just like we have heard of the Ashwamedha Yajna, there is something called as the Gomedha Yajna. Ashwamedha Yajna is sacrificing a horse. Gomedha Yajna is sacrificing a cow. Now I want to pause here before our mind races rampantly as to what a sacrifice is. I want to pause, if I can, pause your mental space and discuss what this sacrifice is. Now traditionally, when the Brahmanas performed an animal sacrifice, they never killed the animal. They had the power through Vedic chant, through Vedic sound, to take the life out of the body, sacrifice the old, diseased body of the animal, and put the soul in a new, fresh body that would come out of this fire as the power of their purity. So in this way, the old body gets a new house, the old soul gets a new house, and at the same time, they get the benefit of the sacrifice without killing any life, no loss of life. This is the power of sound, and this can be understood. You see, sound is something that has a profound influence on all of us. You stand under a tree, birds are on the branch, you just clap. Well, I didn't clap that to just get your attention. That was also a reason. But if you just stand under the branch of a tree and you clap, you see birds on that branch, they don't even see you. But just the sound makes them fly. So sound infuses fear in the birds as much as sound can infuse happiness in the birds. They chirp themselves. Talk about influence of sound on something like deer. You can play the flute as a hunter and attract the deer by your flute sound. The deer forgets that it's being charmed. You stop the flute playing, the deer bounces back to senses. Wait a minute, this is a human, he's a hunter, I'm a deer. Better run. Hunters catch deer just by playing the flute. The sound of the flute is so attractive. Talking about sound and influence on birds and animals, talking on the influence on human beings. How do we wake up from sleep? Our iPhone alarm. That is sound. Sound wakes us up from sleep. Even spiritually it is mentioned that for someone who has to leave this world and go back to the kingdom of God, anavrittihi shabdhat Vedanta Sutra. By sound, just like you wake up from sleep, you can wake up from the sleep of distress by taking shelter of the names of Krishna's holy, sacred sound vibration. So by the power of mantras, this is possible. Even for us, you see, as soon as there's some nice music, our ears are gone outside the window. Like you're listening to me just by the eye, but as soon as there's something going on, you're like this, but the ears are there. Someone playing some Kishore Kumar or Mohammad Rafi song outside, that brings you back to your 70s. And this boredom class on onion and garlic, my eyes are stuck there, but my ears are kidnapped by Kishore Kumar. I don't know about Krishna as Nanda Kumar, but I know this Kishore Kumar, who's all attractive. So sound can captivate in such a way. My God, even human beings. On the other hand, if someone brings in like some chiseling sound or welding sound, and you're like, oh, stop this, it's too much, construction sound. So sound plays an influence on our characters. Similarly, for sacrifice, on the power of sound, they would take the life out, sacrifice the old body, and throw in the life back into the body. But when with time, this Brahminical culture and purity declined, people wanted to remain Brahmanas without qualifications, so they would bring in the destruction of the body. And that is abominable. So when we talk about other cultures and other places also where you sacrifice a goat for Mother Kali, just tell me one simple thing. Our mother at home, will she be happy if you sacrifice someone? Her heart is so big that she wants everyone to live happily together. Mother Kali is Amba Nupura Shambhavi. Huh? She is Chidrupi Paradevata Bhagavati Sri Raja Rajeshwari. Aparna Uma Parvati Kali Haimavati. Shiva Trinayani Katyayani Bhairavi Savitri Navayovana Shubhakari Samrajya Lakshmi Prada Chidrupi Paradevata Bhagavati Sri Raja Rajeshwari. Can Durga see this abominable goat sacrifice? This is just nonsense. There is happiness in living together, not in sacrificing somebody's life for our breakfast. Is someone's breakfast more important than someone's life? So the Shastras never describe. So when I'm talking about an animal sacrifice, it's important to see all this in proper perspective. So he was performing this cow sacrifice. And at that time his wife was pregnant. And she desired to eat something. And it is described, at that time she had told her husband, if a pregnant woman desires something to eat, you should feed that immediately. And he said yes. And she stole a piece of the cow flesh to eat, according to Shastra. And she hid it. Now in this story, as different details and events proceed, this sacrifice doesn't succeed. So this Brahmana, on the power of his meditation, he asks the presiding deity, and it gets revealed that his wife had stolen a piece. Because what happened was, at the end of the sacrifice, a new cow came out, but had a missing piece, that piece that the wife had stolen. So when the priest was interested to know, wait a minute, what happened? This was revealed that your wife has stolen. So he asked her, and she agreed. So he said, please don't do this, throw this as far as you can. So she went and threw it in a field. And it's described that piece, because it was potent in a sacrificial arena, it was used in that field. And what came out was onion and garlic. The bone of that cow became garlic, and the flesh of that cow became onion, with the same color as the origin. So therefore, the Shastras talk about this story and say, therefore Vaishnava should never have this, because it reminds us of that history. And you will be surprised, not just this, I will read through a few references that we have it together here. Please listen to this very carefully. In the Kurma Puran, it is said one should avoid onion and garlic and the sap of trees. O sages, one who eats onion and garlic, that person should observe a Chandrayana Vrat. Then the Hari Bhakti Vilas explains, one should not eat onion and garlic. They should not eat sour products or the juice coming from the tree. If twice born Brahmanas eat these things, they fall in their spiritual standing. Then the Garud Puran, first section, 96th chapter, 72nd verse says, by eating onion and garlic, one becomes sinful and must atone a Chandrayan Vrat. Then the Skanda Puran describes onion, garlic, milk of a cow before the lapse of 10 days after calving, stool-thriving pigs, and a grain growing in rubbish and mushrooms. These are things avoidable for a human for consumption. Shiva Mahapuran, 7th section, 10th chapter, 7th chapter, text 10, 11 and 12. A householder taking the right shall avoid heavy indigestible pulses. Different products are given. And in that also brinjal, coconuts, garlic, onion, intoxicating beverage, and all kinds of meat. So this is at a certain time frame, not generally. Coconuts you can have. Padma Puran. He should avoid stalks of lotuses, safflower, gold or silver, onion, garlic, thick fluid substance, greasy milk of a cow, and mushrooms. By eating all of these, a twice born Brahmana falls from spiritual standing. Varaha Puran. I shall now mention those things that must be avoided in Shraddha. Garlic, onion, radish, and other articles devoid of smell and with no taste should be avoided. The reason is also mentioned as follows. Formerly in a fight between Devatas and the Asuras, Bali was defeated by the Suras, and his wounds and drop of blood gushed out, and onion and garlic are the source. Varaha Puran. Then Manu Samhita. Garlic, onion, mushrooms, and the other mentioned plants, there's a long list. They are impure substances and unfit to be eaten for someone desiring spiritual upliftment. And finally, Manu Samhita chapter 5 text 19, a twice born Brahmana who wants to be spiritually uplifted must knowingly, will become an outcast if he knowingly eats mushrooms, garlic, onion, village cock, leeks, and he becomes as abominable as someone eating a village pig. So these are references even from Shastra. So in this discussion time that we had, we mentioned about the culture in this world. We spoke about the scientific papers that are presented. We spoke about Ayurveda. We spoke about references from the Shastra. And this is exactly that is practiced. Not just by us, even the Jains practice it. You see many strict Christians practice it. I have seen strict Buddhists practice it. So what we are practicing is not devotion, but is the uniform meant to enter the school of devotion. True devotion is to devote ourselves to the process of chanting the names of God. But what helps us is like a uniform. And therefore Prabhupada said, no onion and no garlic.